This is absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, the worst possible tool to try to do what was done. After reviewing the autopsy report, looking at what was submitted as evidence as being the murder weapon, my first inclination based on my experience and expertise is no, this is not the murder weapon. It may have been used as part of the murder, but I do not believe it was the primary weapon. Two things you can do with a knife. You can cut with it, or slash, or you can stab with it. This knife is primarily a stabbing tool. You need to get about 1.5 inches, 2 inches deep into the human body up around the neck area in order to cause a what would prove to be a mortal wound. These things are what I would say was junk, and I would be terrified of somebody stabbing me with one, but as far as slashing me with one, which is the normal human instinct, this knife really wouldn't do much in the way of slashing. My personal feeling is that with me being 6'2", 310 pounds, having a lot of hand strength and a lot of training, that I couldn't do what was done in the homicide as far as the partial decapitation with this knife. And I don't think that it would stand up to that abuse by anyone. There's a lot of stuff to go through when you talk about partial decapitation. The first major hurdle is getting through the trachea. And the way that we explain it to lay people is more or less it's like the hose on a vacuum, your household vacuum hose tube. It's got those ridges in there. It's really hard to get through and would take a massive sawing action. The chances of just putting this through and ripping it, and again, the reason I make this motion is that the only way I would even have a chance of causing a decapitation to somebody, even with a bigger knife, is by doing it behind, normally with them down on their knees, forcing their head down on the blade, starting all the way over and putting it and ripping as hard as I could. I believe that this blade would have snapped very early on, and that it's just not a viable murder weapon. If I had enough time to get fired up and very angry at somebody, there is an excellent chance with a suitable weapon that I could behead somebody. However, by the time I'm done doing that, I'm going to be pretty exhausted. After the adrenaline dump, I'm going to be trembling. I'm going to be shaking. I'm going to be, especially with anything involving cutting the carotids on the neck, I'm going to be absolutely soaked in blood. And I would liken this to anybody that's seen anybody come in after they've gutted a deer. The blood is going to be under your fingernails. It's going to be all over your hands. If you're wearing gloves and you have a long sleeve shirt, this amount of blood is going to soak through gloves. That's why they have specific gloves that have barriers in them to block blood. It's going to soak through gloves. It's going to soak through clothes. There's going to be arterial spray. It's going to be absolutely all over. It's going to look like a slaughterhouse. There's something that goes on during a fight or flight response that's called vasoconstriction. What vasoconstriction means is that the blood from your extremities, from your arms and your legs pull into your thoracic cavity. The only thing your body is concerned with is pumping enough blood into your heart and enough blood into your lungs to keep you fighting. That said, all the blood from your entire body is pushed into this area. If you can liken it to somebody taking a garden hose and going like that, that pressure builds up. Well, when you take the kink out of the garden hose, it's going to go everywhere. And that heart is beating. This kid was fighting for his life. He's being murdered, and there's not blood all over the place. I just do not see it. I would be looking for blood all over, even without vasoconstriction. I would be looking for blood all over the walls, all over the ceiling. It's when you see an arterial bleed, when somebody punctures usually one of the carotids, one of the brachials, or one of the femoral arteries, it looks unnatural. It doesn't look real. It looks like a Hollywood effect. It doesn't look like something you normally see with a person. It comes out of there like a geyser. Reading the autopsy, and based on my experience and expertise, I'm of the opinion that the first couple stab wounds to the upper back and to the arms were right in the beginning of the assault. He subsequently had the decapitation, and then there's an excellent chance that he was moved to another location, and that's where all the other little stab wounds that they've estimated as somewhere in the area of 100, I believe they were inflicted post-mortem, quite possibly in another area with the suspect on his chest. The most natural thing that humans do with any kind of a stabbing tool is this overhead ice pick stab. That's very natural to humans. And again, this is supported by looking at the autopsy, the puncture wounds on top of his back. The suspect is obviously taller than the victim. So when he's not going to be walking towards him, he's going to be chasing towards him. Just like most fights are start off by a roundhouse punch. As you're moving forward, especially fast, you're not going to stab anybody like this. You're coming overhead and you're doing this sort of a motion. And those are the first couple ones. Well, when you're getting stabbed in the back, your first reaction is to turn around and try to defend yourself. It's typical or most probable that a right-handed person is going to drop back with their right foot, and they're going to use this arm to clear what's going on. And again, that's when we have the contact, and we have wounds up here. And at some point, he was knocked to the ground, I believe, or was at least down on his knees, and whoever cut his throat had to do it from behind. I've been looking for a male who was a lot bigger than the suspect, had the ability to not only get the power behind these cuts, but he'd also have to be restraining him with the hand that he's not using to cut and stab. Is when I look at the autopsy, we have what's estimated somewhere in the vicinity of 100 puncture wounds, a partial decapitation, puncture wounds all over the back of the head, dozens on both sides of the neck, but 1, 2, 3 small stab wounds on the face. This screams to me somebody saying, you made me do this. They didn't want to deform or do anything to his face. They specifically avoided the face, and that strikes me as this was a very spontaneous thing. Whoever it was knew the victim and couldn't bring themselves to do any damage to the face. I believe every one of these 3 stab wounds I see to the face were accidental.